Welcome, my dear students of class 9 to this English class with me, your tutor Atsinyo Sekose. Today we are going to take a look at our grammar worksheet 3. You would find it on page 97. So if you look at it, you would find that this grammar worksheet has to do with the tenses. And tenses is not a topic that is new to us, but we are going to take a look at it in a little different perspective using a diagram called timeline. I would give you the details as to how to go about with that. So for drawing a timeline, in fact, let's begin with what is a timeline. A timeline here is a diagram that we use to denote when an action took place. So we have under tenses, we will find that we have past, present, and future. So draw a straight line and break it up into 3 sections. Then on your left hand side, you mark it as past. Then in the middle, you can mark it as present. And at the bottom of the diagram, you can also write within the timeline of present, you can write you, or you can also write at the moment of speaking. So we as speakers, or we are always, or we will always find ourselves in the present moment. So that's what we have here in the present timeline, and in the future that would come under, in fact, on your right hand side. So having this timeline will help us understand when an action took place. So when we say verb, we are talking about, when we say tenses, we are talking about verb, we are talking about action, and using this timeline, we will be able to tell when an action took place, whether it was in the past, whether it is in the present or the future. Now, we also need to understand here that under the past timeline frame, you can also write down occurred events, which means an action which is already done or completed. So you can also write completed or finished, whatever the case may be that you prefer. Then in the present, when we say present, we are referring to habitual actions or repeated or recurring, and you can also write universal truth or fact. So that's what we have here under the present tense. In other words, we use present tense when we are referring to recurring events or habitual things or universal things. So that falls under our timeline of present. And in the future, you would find that we use future tense to refer to things or events that are yet to occur, or yet to take place, or yet to be completed. So that's what we have here under future tense. And this timeline is going to be very useful, and in fact, we would be referring to it a lot in the classes of tenses. So I suggest that you make sense of this timeline properly, draw it properly. I would repeat it one more time. Draw a straight line on the left-hand side, break it up into 3 parts. On the left-hand side, you have past for occurred events, which are actions which are completed. In the present, you have it in the right there in the middle, that is habitual, repeated, universal things. And in the future section, or in the future timeline, you have those things which are yet to occur. So remember, this is going to be very significant in order to understand tenses, especially when it comes to some of the confusion regarding the present tense. That is, you will always find yourself in the present moment, and at the moment of speaking, whether you are referring to something in the past or in the future. So in other words, the present timeline here is a linkage between the past and present and future. So it links things up. So that's why you may find yourself a little confused, but we would discuss it together. Now, hold on. Now let's take a look at some of the examples for simple past. For simple past, in order to save time, I would use abbreviated letters here. So for simple past, let's say I took the trash out. So the verb suggests or tells us when the action took place. So in this case here, we can understand that it has already taken place, whether we use adverbial yesterday or last Wednesday and so on. So that suggests that it is an occurred event. So here, somewhere, starting from a past timeline, somewhere at a point of the past, the person has taken the trash out and completed. So that's what we have here. So next one, that is simple present. Using the same example, I take out the trash. Or if you like, you can also say dustbin. I'm sure now you know the difference. So here, if I say I take out the trash, which means at the moment of speaking, remember you will always find yourself here, at the moment of speaking, you are saying this, and which means that this is a habitual or repeated things. Maybe you took out the dustbin yesterday, today also. Maybe that is something that you do at home. So that's what we have. In such kind of repeated actions or recurring actions, we use simple present tense. In some case, in order to make it clearer, we also use every day. So every day here, maybe here is, hold on. Every day, maybe in the past you do that, in the present you do that, and even in the future you are likely to do that. Let's take a look at the simple future. Using the same example, in the simple future you would find some additional verb here. For instance, I will. I will take the trash out. So in this case here, we have an additional word or verb, will here. So in future tense, this suggests that it is something that is going to happen, or it is a promise or a prediction. Supposing you have promised your mother that I will take out the trash tomorrow, or I will take out the trash. That means this is you at the moment of speaking, referring to something that is likely to happen, and you have, let's say you have made a promise, or you are prediction. Because that is something that you are very sure it is going to happen in the future. So remember, you need not get confused here. You are always, at the moment of speaking, you are always in the present, referring to either something in the past that has already been finished, or something that is to occur, that is in the present. So that's what we have here. And as you can see, in all these three cases, we have only one event, took the trash out, take the trash out, will take the trash out. So in this kind of simple tenses, simple present, past or future, we have only one event. Hold on. Took one, take one, will take one. So only one event. So that's what we have here. Now we would move on to the progressive, or in other words, we can also say continuous. Past continuous, present continuous, future continuous. So now let's take a look at the progressive or the continuous part. Let's first take past continuous. Take the example of taking out the trash again. I was taking out the trash when you called. So here, when do we use progressive, or for that matter, past continuous tense? When we have two events, that is taking out the trash, that's one, and when you called, this is the second event. So in other words, we use past continuous tense to refer to an action that was going on somewhere in the past. We may not know the exact duration here, but let's take a look at it in this way. Supposing somewhere in the past, at a point of time, the person was taking out the trash and this person, a second person called. So here we have the first event and here the second event. So all these things are happening in the past, and at the moment of speaking, you are referring, you are here in the present, or you can also say now. So in this case here, you are referring to something that was going on in progress when another event took place and interrupted. So that's what we have here in the past continuous tense. So as you can see, what we are discussing here is that we are focusing more on when do we use these tenses instead of the forms of the tenses. Now let's take a look at the present continuous. So this, using the same sentence, let's convert it into present continuous. I am taking out the trash when you called. So in this case here, we have the same event, number of events, that is 1, called 2. In the present continuous, we use this present continuous to give emphasis on the fact that the action of taking out the trash is going on here in the present, whereas another action that already took place or that also took place and interrupted the action. So we are emphasizing on the fact that an action is going on at the moment of speaking when another action interrupted it. So in this case here, I am taking out the trash. Let's say at this point of time, I am taking out the trash when you called. So here, something happened here, and the action, in fact, the action of taking out the trash overlaps all these. So when you called, and it is probably in continuation with this as well. So that's when we use the present continuous tense. Now, like I said, the present continuous tense is a little tricky, but remember, if you can just remember that you are always in the present, and whether you are referring to an action that was happening or had happened or happened for that matter, that is when we put special emphasis on the tenses. Now, let's take a look at the future continuous. So in future continuous, remember we will be having this. I will, then we have the be verb, be, taking out the trash when you called. Let's put it in that way. Now, in this case here, let me put another color here. In this case here, when you called, I will be taking out the trash when you called. So here, at the moment of speaking, again, at the moment of speaking, this action has some relevance in the conversation. Let's say that you are talking to a friend and your friend said, I would call you at 6 o'clock. Let's say 6 o'clock. And let's say the discussion is going on at 5 o'clock here, and the person said, I would call you at 6 o'clock. So referring to an action that is likely to happen in the future. So in this case here, that is the simple, this is the continuous, future continuous tense, because here we are referring to an action that would be continuing when something else takes place. Now, so here, I will be taking out the trash. When you call, it should be in this manner instead of the past participle ed, because the action has not yet taken place, because we are referring to a future which is yet to take place. But emphasis on the fact that the action would be going on. So there is that marked difference. Now let's very quickly take a look at the difference between when and while when we are using the present continuous tense. So when we say when, we are referring to a specific period of time. It may be 2020, it may be yesterday, and so on. Then when we say since, or when we use since, hold on, I'm making a mistake there. Let me begin that one. Now let's take a look at when and while. And we usually use this in the present continuous tense. But there is a difference between when and while. When we say when, as it suggests, referring to an action that is completed, or we can say specific. While at a point of time or duration, we can put it in that way. So I'll give you an example. Let's take the same example, that is, I was taking out the trash when you called. Let's put it here. When you called. A complete action here. Supposing I've changed this sentence into I was taken out, in fact, when you called. Let's say we begin this sentence, the sentence with when you called. Hold on there. I'm making a huge blunder here, getting myself confused. Okay. Supposing, taking the same example, I was taking out the trash while, let's say, talking to you. So this is duration. We are referring to an action that is continuing and for a period of time. Whereas when here is a completed action and specific. So these are some of the differences, and we use it in the present tense to make it clear or to focus more on when the action is taking place or whether an action, a previous event has been completed or not. So that's what we have here under these tenses, and I hope that you are able to understand something out of it. And if you are confused, that is very good, because if you are confused, that tells us that, or that will be telling you that you are trying to think and make sense of this. And on that note, we would be winding up today's class. Thank you all very much for joining me.